Shakespeare once said all the world's a stage, but he didn't tell us how to get there. This is Steps to the Stage, a 7th Street Theater podcast. I'm your host, Colin Pinedo, and let's get the show going.
Thank you, places!
If you're looking for your ideal home, then Regina Price can help you find it for the right price at reginaprice.com.
Hello and welcome to Steps to the Stage, a 7th Street Community Theater podcast where we take you through the ins and outs of what it means to put on a production with the community theater professionals you know and love. Today, to help us talk through the actor's perspective and sort of the rehearsal aspect, we have Jessie and Aaron Pyle. Welcome back.
Hi.
Hi.
It's great
nice to see you,
back.
Colin. Yeah.
Perfect. Good to see you guys too. How have you guys been?
Great.
Yeah.
We've been busy with we have a baby.
Yay!
Oh my God.
Well, not just a baby. He's pretty darn. He's an awesome baby.
And an 8-month-old at that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's very cute.
So it keeps you busy.
How about
Yeah.
you, Colin?
Doing pretty good. You know, college and everything has been happening, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Nice.
You know?
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
an
still
adult.
working on.
Everyone's
God.
reaction. Don't
Oh
worry.
God.
I know.
Yeah. So just a couple questions to sort of get us started. What is it like for you two as actors, sort of just to get into a role, sort of to get into that mindset and to prepare and, you know, all of that good stuff?
Well, I think Aaron and I have somewhat different approaches when it comes to that. So it's kind of nice to get multiple perspectives.
Absolutely.
For me, I think it definitely depends on the role, but I'm a very physical actor. So if I can find something that clues me in physically to a character, a physical characteristic or a tick that they have that'll really hone me in, that'll really work to my advantage a lot if I can get there very quickly. And then from there, just finding that physicality as we go is really, really important for me. So finding a physical aspect of my character really gets me going first and foremost and keeps me in the role longer. But having watched Aaron the past few weeks as he's preparing for his role, I mean, he does so much research ahead of time. Yes, Jasper. He does so much research ahead of time. And so I'll let him talk a little bit about that.
Well, my process, and I say process, I don't really have a process that I can hang my hat on, but I can just see some consistencies because I don't have an education in acting, and so I don't really know. I'm just kind of winging it, and I learn as I go. But it's not dissimilar at all from what Jessie just said. In fact, it's very much the same. I'm also a very physical actor, and it's just about like. I always say that, you know, I tell my story on stage with other people's words coming out. And that's just finding the bridge, connecting myself to the character. I've discovered, you know, there's a saying that not to judge your character. But I have found just instinctually that I've had some pretty terrible characters to inhabit. Pretty awful people, and maybe people just think like, this guy is terrible. Who would do this well? Oh yeah, Aaron. But and I find myself judging them. In the past, I think immediately like I want to grow a stupid mustache to punish them, to look ridiculous because they deserve it. But then it's interesting because I find myself like an audience maybe that's the knee-jerk reaction of judgment. But then as time goes on, I find myself realizing that I have very much messed up in points in my life, and I begin to relate to them and I begin to forgive them. And then I come to a better place where it's like, okay, forget the mustache. I need to. So it's a very interesting thing, and so yeah, it's all about. And I'm finding it, you know, with this character and with others that I layer with that research, and then almost without really thinking too much about it, then I almost kind of shed it. So that it becomes more honest and it's less about this novelty, that novelty. And it's like things that just are the person and it's not that they're wearing it on their sleeve necessarily. So it's it's an interesting thing. And again, without really putting much thought into it, I put a lot of things on metaphorically, and then I need to try and like take them away almost, and just have them a part of something that maybe they won't even detect, but I know it's there.
But the character knows it's there.
For sure.
There's a different, sort of metatextual level, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. Yep,
absolutely. Things that they, like you said, they don't even know they're doing, but we do things that we don't even know we're doing. And
absolutely.
Like, we're people.
Absolutely. And you don't wear your history on your sleeve, but it inevitably formed who I'm seeing in front of me.
Exactly.
And the tics and the hesitations and the looking, not looking in the eye or look, all those things. It's because of all those experiences that you've
this entire time, and I've just sort of
So it's a lot of kind of silly actor things, but it's not silly at all. It's like create a backstory. It seems silly on paper, but it's really not. You have to know where you're coming from in order to react honestly. Let's say somebody drops a line. You need to fill in with just like sort of improvising a line.
Yeah.
Well, that line, if the work has been done correctly leading up to that point, it'll be a line that is most natural for your character to come out with. Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
totally. It's all part of the big package.
For sure.
A little tired if you can't tell.
No.
How does all of that work sort of culminate and get honed and refined during the rehearsal process for people who may not know?
Well, I mean, obviously, a great director is key to that. I have certain habits, both good and bad. And I don't know sometimes, most often I think my bad habits until they're pointed out to me. And a lot of directors don't do that. First of all, because they may have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
They have, if it's a drama, they may have, 6 to 10 people possibly or less. If it's a musical, shoot, they have way too many people to focus on.
Yeah.
And if you're one of the better ones, possibly, then they're like, they're fine. I could nitpick, but I'm just going to let them be because these people need a lot more work or whatever the case may be. But that's frustrating for me because if I'm not getting better, then what am I doing? And so it's nice when they're able to push back. One of my favorite directors, I consider my mentor, the person that I started back in theater with after 20 years of no theater and thinking I'd never do it again, is Patrick Bryan, who's actually directing a show I'm starting rehearsals for on Tuesday, appropriate, is that, from the very beginning, it doesn't feel good, a lot of rehearsals, to be told that was way too much. That was not honest at all. What are you, and sometimes you feel good and then you get brought back down to earth and it doesn't feel great, but that is growth, the growing pains. That's absolutely it. It's like, oh crap, I think I'm the weakest link. Oh no. I've had so many nights like, going home thinking, oh my God, I just realized that I'm the worst person in the cast. But then what happens? You either bury your head in the sand and continue to be the worst, if that was ever the truth, and it may not be, or you freaking rise and do better than you thought you could, and there's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
So
in a weird way, the anxiety kind of helps.
Absolutely. I mean,
tipping the scales back.
My over seriousness, I'm jealous of people that could just have fun.
Oh yeah.
I do have fun, but I take it way seriously. So it's, if I'm doing it right, I'm kind of mostly not having fun. So it's interesting. And then
it's fun. And then it all.
Yeah, absolutely. The end product, my main goal is of course the end product. So that's where my payoff is. If it's like, oh, the audience was moved or they have questions or they're talking, then it's like, okay, I can not relax because, you continue to, it continues to sort of grow as the performances go, but I can ease up on myself a little bit.
Find yourself, center yourself a little bit more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, let me see, Jesse. Yeah. So we're going to switch. Sorry about that. Because otherwise it's just me talking.
Yeah. So as far as getting into character goes, I mean, I really take my cues from the script. So there are some practices from teachers of the past that I had where, you read the script through once for pleasure. You read it once and maybe in one color you underline or highlight all the things you say about yourself. Your character says these things about themselves. That's that self-belief or what they want others to think of them. But you go through and you just underline the stuff your character says about yourself. And then you go through and you underline all the things that every other character says about your character. You let that inform you. And then your final read of this nature would be like underlining all the things that the playwright says about your character, right? In the character directions. Or at the beginning of the play, even beforehand, sometimes they have a little character breakdown. So sometimes I take cues from the actual script, and I love to make my scripts colorful. So I highlight or I underline in different colors. I flag key things. I make notes on my script. Now, here's an example of Aaron's from the show he's in right now.
Perfect.
He's got like flags and notes in the margins and drawings and all sorts of stuff. It's beautiful for those of you listening. And then highlighted and and notes in and outside the margins. So it's very cool.
Absolutely.
But once I get into the actual rehearsal room, then I take off all of my preconceived notions. I even let go of some of the things that maybe I feel like I've planned too much. And I just play. I let go of all of that. And I allow, obviously, the director to influence me. But I also just need to listen to my fellow actors. And so all of that work and research I may have had time to do beforehand or not, because sometimes you guys get cast and then the very next day you're in your first rehearsal.
Things start. And then
you might not have the chance to do all of this prep work. But once you're in the room, you're listening, you're bouncing ideas off of other people by being present in the moment. Planning ahead is just like, it really can be a detriment to the creative process, especially when you're actually working with other very talented individuals. If you're, just forcing your own idea upon it, then it doesn't really work as well. But in that case, I mean, you can't really hold back your creativity either. And in the case of, someone like you, Colin, I've seen you have so many fun and creative ideas. And if you held those back early on, then this show would be less amazing. And so you really have to learn to trust yourself, trust your instincts, let it flow. And if the director pushes you in a different direction or things like that, that's the time to say, okay, rein in my ego. It's not about me. It's about this character. But also, hey, would you mind it if I tried it this way one time and just see what their reaction is? You're not doing anything except like, hi, I've already played around with this concept. How about we try it once? And if they're receptive, then go for it and go for it all out the first time. Don't apologize for it.
Absolutely.
So that's really, once I get into rehearsals, it's all about listening. My early training in high school was very Meisner's technique. So a lot of like call and response, active listening. And so if I can get my head in the mindset of not planning, I think I'm in a really good space.
Talk more about your experience as like an acting, like a student of theater, like in like high school and like college and all of that. What is that experience like? And what have you learned from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So often when I think back on the different schools that I've gone to and also the training that I received, I mean, I did like Beverly Hills Studios when I was in 6th grade. So that was all very like commercial-esque. And then once I got into high school, I mean, we studied all sorts of different things at the LA County High School for the Arts. So we had, movement-wise, we had Suzuki training, which is like a physical, in order to expose the the raw emotions of things and allowing yourself to become a part of an ensemble in a unit and then breaking those things apart. We did Catherine Fitzmaurice, voice work. And that was destructuring. So you do a lot of tremoring and deep breathing to get to like your deep, like natural breath, right? So you're very grounded vocally. I'm like cueing into it right now. There's a different kind of speech that goes on with that.
Yeah.
We did Meisner, of course. I just mentioned that. We worked on a lot of really different types of theater, right? From Sam Shepard to Greek plays, Shakespeare. We created our own plays in high school. So all of those different types of theater of the oppressed, theater of the absurd. So doing all of those different kinds of theater, I really got to find where my interests lay, where my strengths lay, and, appreciate when someone else knew a little bit more than I did about something. I could just sit back and enjoy their process, right?
Again, keep the ego in check. Let
yeah, exactly.
everything be like water, be able to flow and move when you need to. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then my first year of college, I went to the experimental theater wing at New York University at NYU. And so at NYU in the ETW program, it was really all about physical. So it was very experimental physical theater. Everything was every warm up was yoga or bar, which is like floor bar is like a ballet technique, but on the floor. Again, a lot of different kinds of voice work. And we just really got exposed to a whole bunch of different styles of physical theater. There's a teacher called Stephen Wong who was there, who wrote a book called The Acrobat of the Heart, all about his acting technique, which is beautifully written. I highly recommend it. But then we also, studied basic Uta Hagen and things like that, because truly we studied all of the different greats of the theater world. And then from there, I moved on. I moved on pretty quickly, and I went to PCPA, which was the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts. And that was just an incredible theater conservatory for me personally. And there, we worked a lot on musical theater and Shakespeare. And I really, really felt like I came into my own as an actor with those great teachers and that amazing program. Just talking about, being a theater student in general, that wasn't even the end of my studying, but it was certainly probably the heart of who I am as a teacher and as a director now. And when I do get the rare opportunities to act still, I definitely, use every bit of those things from my grab bag. And I just honor all of my teachers along the way. I think it's been an amazing path. Yeah. Do you want me to pass you on to Aaron, though? I feel like I got long-winded.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
If you need high-quality headshots or other professional photo work done, visit Xochi Neri Photography at fb.me/xneri-photos.
Okay.
Hey. Yeah, so we were talking about Jessie's sort of history as a student of theater, going to all sorts of different acting classes starting in high school and everything. And I was wondering your perspective on that as someone who, as you said, hasn't had a whole lot of actual like hard and fast training, and what's been like going sort of mentor to mentor and like what you've learned in that way and sort of from that perspective as well. If you
I appreciate even be given the chance to talk about that, because it's an interesting thing. So during that 20-some year hiatus and never thinking I would do it again, I didn't think I had anything to offer. And I'm getting around to the actual or lack thereof education of the art. Because I imagine the shows I did when I was a teenager, and I wasn't really given a chance, nor was I really pushing for it to like really like do some deep acting. It was like, musicals and fun. I was having fun. I wasn't taking it super seriously when I was a teenager. And then I stopped and got tattoos and traveled. And I thought like that was so far behind me and I couldn't imagine. So thinking back to what I did, not knowing about real plays that I would end up falling in love with, I was imagining sort of like jazz hands and like smiling. And, I just thought like, I'm too hardened now. Too much has happened. I can't do that now, and then it turns out that once I dared to get back in, and the first role in Martin McDonagh's Pillowman, after that long of not acting and never having a chance to have been pushed like that, I realized that all that time, what I did have to offer was everything. My story, to get back to that, all that time, I did not know what I was doing per se, as far as, techniques and what to name things. Oh, I do this and that. And somebody says, oh, you mean this? Oh, well, I guess that's what it means, So, and then I was kind of skeptical after I got involved. I was kind of wary of quote unquote education, because when I would talk with people that had a vast amount of education, it seemed like they were almost battling. It seemed almost counterintuitive to me to learn how to be honest, to learn how to be natural.
The techniques for how to be spontaneous. It's kind of
exactly. I was like, what? How does that make sense? I don't want to have all this info and then hopefully be able to push it all away so that I don't look like I'm working on my techniques on stage. But now, I'm sort of coming back. I'm coming to some sort of middle ground where a few experiences that I was lucky enough to have over the last few years, a symposium, like a Stanislavski symposium and this and that. I realized like, okay, there is obviously benefits to having that experience. I shouldn't say, no, that might ruin me. So I'm coming around to realize that, it would be, I have to trust that I could take it all in, like I'm talking about the character, take it in and then push it out as necessary. Keep the good bits, or what works for me. So it's a very interesting thing. And now I'm getting, into some film work, and I definitely see that I could maybe use a little help in film, because I just come off so big.
Yes.
So I absolutely see that I could benefit from some classes in acting on film.
Camera acting.
Right now I'm just doing it trial by fire, doing small projects where $1 million isn't riding on me. And if I have a little trouble, then, everyone's doing their best. But so it's an interesting thing going without a formal education in that way in art.
Yeah. Trying to figure out. Absolutely. Yeah. Going like show to show, even figuring out.
But as I overheard my lovely wife say, in regards to acting, but just as far as learning, whatever you're interested in, how much I learned from line notes or sorry, not line notes, just notes, right?
Yeah.
It took me so many shows to realize, like, don't just perk up my ears when I hear my name, like, oh, Aaron, here's your note. Unfortunately, it took me so many shows to realize I'm learning from everybody else's notes. I take in everything. I just have to listen and be open to learning. And I'm so intent on getting better that, and I also always say, if I'm the best person on stage, then I'm wasting my time. I need to, getting back to kind of points I was making earlier, I need to be uncomfortable and feel slightly insecure in order to break through that, to grow,
to find the drive to
because I just want to be better. I've never committed myself so much to any one thing, and it took me this long in life to finally do it, but I'm there, and I just want to just rise and
absolutely.
And in that, it's so interesting. In the rising, what I'm really talking about is being more and more honest. It is just learning. It's such a mysterious, tough thing to figure out how to just be honest. It's so weird. Going back to like the feeling counterintuitive, like it's really a tough thing.
Absolutely. To
not like indicate, to just just tell it honestly. And I still struggle with it, but but that's a good thing. I'm still in a classroom, so that's good.
Yeah. As someone that, as my therapist would say, is an internal processor on this side, it's definitely an endeavor to truly be as genuine as you need to be. In just
and that takes a lot of courage, because again, if my experience, I know it's going to be different for everybody, but in being honest, I'm telling more and more of my own secrets. Little do people know, like, let's say I'm doing the one-man Van Gogh show. Little do they know, or maybe they do, but little do they know. In fact, most often, I did Last Days of Judas Iscariot. You may or may not know the show, but playing Judas, I would have to go back and forth on a dime of just weeping, and then it would go back into a different period of time where I'm like a kid and happy and hopeful. And I would have to make that transition so quickly. So little did people know, when I'm up on stage just crying or just silent and catatonic in the background, the things that are going through my mind, the things that I'm actually telling them, that are just embarrassing, that are shameful, that hurt, that make me hopeful. I'm just giving them all of that, and without, giving, putting, personal words to it.
Yeah, well, because everything comes from somewhere. You have to be able to have of at least reference for almost any role to be able to.
Yeah, I know there's different schools. Without the education, I couldn't say exactly what, but some feel that, going back to the group theater and what that spawned, the different the different schools of thought, the different methods of, like, it's too painful to dip back into your own past. Don't do that at all, because many don't climb their way out of that hole. I don't have that trouble. I'll climb all day long into those dark holes. Yeah, it's not. And then I guess just some say it's acting. You just make it up. You don't dig into your own past. That's great if that works for you. But I go into myself and pull stuff out. Yeah, it's not even like a very personal experience. It's not just some point of reference from any interaction that you've had. Yeah, helps to fuel, even if it's not like, oh my God, this terrible thing happened to me, and so now I get to use that to cry. And it's like, I know what this has been like for other people, and I've seen other people go through this. And that's what so much of acting is. Yeah, gaining empathy as well. Yeah. It's not even, it all comes from somewhere, even if that somewhere isn't like a deep personal trauma. For sure. Still from something. Again, those bridges, somehow you must relate to that. Exactly. Not, And if you can't, then maybe you've been miscast. Okay. I mean, if you just can't find you can't see any bit of that character in your own mirror, then maybe that character wasn't for you. Maybe it's just too far beyond you or something. I don't know. Who knows? And nowadays, a lot of that is maybe you should, it's just so interesting. And that's a whole nother thing about what role should you be playing? What should you not be playing? I've struggled with that myself. Interesting. I've had a few roles where I'm like, I turn to the people that I respect around me saying, should I be doing this? Is this okay for me to do? That's something that's come up a couple times for me as well, especially nowadays. Yeah. Which is not a bad thing at all. No, we should be asking those questions. No, exactly. For sure. We should be figuring out the answers. Yeah. Absolutely. In terms of your experience, what would you say is one of your like favorite roles that you've played, or just the most memorable experience you've had as a character in a production, anything like that? I mean, hardly anything can beat the Van Gogh show I do. Okay. It's talking about artistry and the process and what it gives you and what it takes from you. And me personally, it does take from me. So that, nothing much can beat that. Plus John Lind wrote it. He directed it. I will never replace that experience. So short answer is, I guess, the one-man show as Van Gogh. And that will be, I could say the first show I did coming back, I was like, wow, I'm capable of this. That light going on, that like, that sudden belief in yourself, there's not much that can beat that either. That first initial, like, oh, maybe I'm worth it. Maybe my story is good enough. And the answer is everybody's story is good enough. But when you don't know that, when that first occurs to you, that's pretty brilliant. And that makes me want to cry right now, but I'll have to still say Van Gogh. It's again, I can't, I'll thank John Lynn till I die.
Any time spent with John is time well spent.
Of course. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. So if you want to bring Jessie back in and we can ask
her I will.
Some of the same questions. So we were just talking about going off of sort of Aaron's experience and his sort of experience as like a theater student, going from like mentor to mentor, learning show to show in that regard, which sort of led into what are some of your favorite roles as an actor, just your favorite experiences in a role or as a performer?
Well, I have different phases of my life where I can say like, oh, that was a turning point show, or things like that. It was actually a workshop I was in when I was 8, that Jared East and Jeff Wilson directed me in. They were like my 2 coaches, and I think the show was called The Tea Party with like the capital T. It was like a little kid's script. But they really brought out a sense of play in me that I had been such a shy kid before that. I mean, my parents helped start this theater and all of those things. And yet here I was like way more comfortable hiding under my mom's skirts than actually being seen. I loved being on stage in the ensemble. I knew all the words of the show, but as far as like actually owning my own presence on stage, that was really, that workshop was my moment. And it was really powerful. And from that workshop, right after that, I was cast as Annie in the musical Annie. And I remember that really brought it out of me even more so. So that was directed by, her name was Lisa Cherry then, but Lisa Kuhn, Lisa Qualls, Lisa Cherry. Let's see, I'm trying to remember what her final name was anyway. But she's a wonderful director and stage manager and actress in her own right around here. And then let's see, as a young woman, I remember playing Baker's wife in Into the Woods.
Oh, that's fun.
And that was a very poignant moment for me where I felt like I got to play a little more gritty character. I often played the ingenue, very, very often. So I played like Roxanne in Cyrano de Bergerac. That was great.
Oh, yeah.
But I was very often playing the ingenue for quite a while. I remember one of my most challenging roles was playing Nora in A Doll's House. It's a Henrik Ibsen play. It's like very feminist play for its time. And I remember playing that. That was my last year of undergrad. And that was, it's such a challenging role, and it's like a 3-hour show, and she never leaves the stage except to change her clothes. So Nora is on stage monologuing whenever anyone else is off stage. And let's see, as a full-blown adult, I really loved playing Sylvia more recently. The cast that I got to play with was just phenomenal, and playing a dog, again, getting into the physicality is really fun. Playing your dream role as a kid, as an adult, that was really special. So I got to play Annie quite a few times at the Chance, Anne of Green Gables at the Chance Theater quite a few times. So from the time I think I was 24 until I was 30, I played Anne 3 different Christmas slots. And it was so special. And of course, Anne is like a 12-year-old at the beginning of the play. By the end of the play, she's like 18. Yeah. But I played much younger for these few years. But it was remarkably special for me to be able to
special show.
Play a character that I had always loved, like from the time I was a child. And I was watching Megan Follows play it on the PBS series. So I gave you way more than one, but favorites for times of life, I think, is what I honed in on.
Equally important. Yeah. So I think the final question for both of you, if you're willing to both be here, is coming to the end of the episode. What advice would you give to aspiring young actors, whether they are starting out in community theater or trying to start out in like an acting class even in like high school or anything, what advice would you give to young people who might be listening?
Well, I would say thanks for putting yourself out there, because I know as a teacher right now, it's been a little scary coming back into the real world for a lot of people, and we're still masked and all of those things. There's still a level of a layer that we don't break through often. But first and foremost, you have to honor your own process. And I'm just so excited to dig in with this new crop of people who have done a lot of internal reflection. I feel like people now, after this 1.5 to 2 years of kind of being isolated, they now have such a rich undercurrent to them that I really hope we learn how to relate again and channel our emotions in a positive and healthy manner and help one another to see that it's okay to be seen and to feel what we feel. And I think that theater is a huge gift. And so if you have at all the desire to be there, to put yourself out there, I just say thank you and do it, and trust your own process.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I would say that, one thing I think is important, has been for me, and I think that a lot of people may not do it very much, is see as much theater as you can and read plays. Read plays. If you love musicals, just take in as much as you can, not just, I think people sort of focus on what they're currently involved in or what is coming up, which is great. But if you find that maybe you're a more serious student than others, if it's really something that you think you're passionate about, then for me, it's been helpful to just dive headlong. Because of my lack of education, I felt that the people I was up on stage with were so much further ahead than me, and they were like 20 years younger. So I just read as much as I could. I went to so many of my new friends. Everyone was new to me. I didn't know anyone when I started. So just went to their shows. I really tried to diversify my intake, and read. And that's helped me tremendously, I think. So to make it shorter, I think that's an important thing that I often hear people say that, oh, I don't read plays really, or I don't, they don't often attend them. And I think it's greatly helpful for me to see other people. And I say, and even shows that aren't good. I'll watch, if I'm researching and I go so nutty, I'll watch stuff on YouTube. I'll watch terrible kids doing a play. I'll watch, I mean, there are great kids, but I mean like really horrible high school shows or productions and there's, even if I watch a whole show and I just pick one thing, and sometimes that's like, I think that should be funny right there. Why isn't it working? Maybe it would be better if it was, taken this direction or that direction, if a different choice was made there. So I'm always learning from things done improperly or things that are knocked out of the park. So I think that's important. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I love it. I was going to say that is totally an Aaron answer, that you are just a sponge and you read and you watch as much as you can. I think that's so important.
Oh, totally.
And as a teacher, I can acknowledge that. And then as an artist myself, I know that I go through phases of just being in my own little hole of like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time for all of this other stuff. Often you just bite off too much.
Yeah.
So also know your own limits and honor yourself in your process. Because I was going to say, like, take a bunch of classes, voice classes and dance classes and Shakespeare, whatever. But at the end of the day, you really just have to trust your instincts and to expose yourself to as much as possible so that you're always kind of prepared for anything. And when people ask, like, hey, have you ever done anything by Ionesco, you at least know who he is. And you can be like, no, but I love theater of the absurd and let me try it out sometime. Or gosh, I don't know Servant of Two Masters, but I've always loved Commedia dell'arte, and I would love to do that. And so if you ever find yourself in a position where like you don't have the vocabulary or the experience to back up your interest in diving in, don't be afraid to say, I've never done that before, but I'd love to try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're putting yourself on the line so much like this in any art form, it's obviously very scary. I mean, for most of the population, they would probably rather get hit by a car than go up on stage and talk.
Yeah.
And let alone tell their own personal story and be vulnerable up on stage. But the just being brave enough to make sure you keep your ego in check when you're given notes, anything else. I feel it in myself kind of surface sometimes, and mostly I'll catch it before I say anything. I'll start to defend myself in line notes or notes. I keep saying that. But then I have to say, stop, don't talk back, and just take it in. I have to, and sometimes it's too late. I'll say, well, this is the reason, or that was the reason. And then later on, I'm like, I still have so much to learn. So listening, like Jessie said, and keeping it in check.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Of course, it was great talking to you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Of course, yeah. In today's day and age, it's more important than ever to remain informed and present in your community, which is why today we would like to highlight the Chino Champion local newspaper. Make sure you keep up with all of Chino's great local events like festivals, meetups, and live performances, virtual or otherwise. The Chino Champion. Thanks for tuning in. Please, subscribe to Steps to the Stage on your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. And scene.